So let's talk about investing in Saudi. I'd like my three panelists to please join me on stage. To begin with, we have the CEO of ASFAR, Dr. Fahad Mushayt, and we have the president of the Middle East and Africa, Hilton Hotels, Guy Hutchinson, and the managing director of MEA and Southwest Asia and special advisor to the UNWTO, Haitham Mattar. Thank you three for joining me. Please have a seat. Well, hopefully we'll have a great dialogue and all of you in the audience will get a better understanding not only of how you can invest here in Saudi, but also some great success stories that deliver ROI while delivering a really beautiful, authentic experience in this wonderful country. And you know, I've had the privilege of coming here for 7 years, starting out as an advisor to the PIF, and then on the board of the Saudi Tourism Authority. And I have said from day one, as a 42-year career executive in the travel industry and a lover of travel, if they could really patent the Saudi hospitality, it would be a $1 trillion patent. So I hope you all enjoy the experience of the Saudi hospitality because it's really special. So on that note, let's begin. So Dr. Mushayt, you are the CEO of ASFAR, and I thought it would be prudent to begin by explaining to the audience, if you will, exactly the unique role that ASFAR has in bridging public and private sector investments to build the tourism sector of the kingdom with a unique and new business model. Can you explain further ASFAR's mandate and how you work with the ministry, the Saudi Tourism Development Fund, and the Saudi Tourism Authority to accelerate your collective goal to strengthen tourism in line with Vision 2030, and how an investor in our audience can work with you? Shukran.
That's a long question.
It's a long one.
Okay, first of all, assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I think your question has a couple of things, many things, BBB, stakeholder engagement, regulation. So luckily, we are working today under one umbrella, which is Vision 2030. So all the stakeholders you mentioned, whether us in BIF, ASFAR, other stakeholders like Ministry of Tourism, STA, TDF, MISA, and all the different players are all working to achieve toward one goal, which is the goal of activation of tourism in Saudi Arabia. And of course, the numbers are there. I'm not going to reveal numbers, but the most important number is 150 million visitors by 2030, which has been increased recently from 100 million to 150 million. Now, as far since inception, we were mandated as a 100% subsidiary by BIF to work together with the private sector. And as far as an investment company, investment arm in hospitality, our vision is to lead tourism and building destination in Saudi and mainly in tier 2 destinations. Tier 2 destinations are mostly everywhere in the kingdom except urban cities like Riyadh and Jeddah. So we are everywhere in the kingdom. And our model is really to work together with private sector. Our model is whenever a destination is being identified, is really to find the right partners, and mainly people who have really know-how, looking for value money, know-how in tourism, in development, and mostly in hospitality. And we have been doing so. In less than 2 years, we are already in 4 destinations. We started with Baha, and Baha is almost already 65% construction. And hopefully, inshallah, Q1 25 will be the soft opening of 2 resorts in Al Baha with our partners in the private sector. The second announcement was in Yambu. In Yambu, literally, and we had the pleasure of having His Excellency, the head of Royal Commission Yambu, Jazan and Jibel, visiting our booth today, and we've signed the lease agreement of 4 different asset class by the water in Yambu. And you know Yambu, how beautiful Yambu as a destination. We've signed also with our partners, which is a consortium of Tamimi Group and Al-Bassam Group. They are our partner as developer in Yambu. And finally, we've just announced recently in the last couple of months our partnership in Al-Ahsa with our partners Rikaz from the Eastern Province, and we've signed in Al-Taif with our partner from Al-Batarji Group. So our model is really to work together with the private sector and empower the private sector. We literally are investors. We sit in the board or the ExCom, and we try to manage together all the partner building the destination. Now, finally, of course, we always, in a almost weekly and monthly basis, work together with the Ministry of Tourism on identifying new opportunities and identifying new destinations and agreeing on the next steps, whether cluster-based or destination-based. Also, with because one of the packages that we provide to our partners, the private sector, is the relationship, the strong relationship we have with the TDF and of course with MISA. And I think there is a major announcement by MISA and Ministry of Tourism tonight about their incentive program to incentivize investing in Saudi Arabia.
Shukran for that. And as a follow-up to it, can you also just tell the audience how these product creation value that you're developing for the economy, such as job creation and local business empowerment, what all these efforts will bring to these second tier? And I don't even like calling them second tier because they're so beautiful. They are just beautiful in a different way than Riyadh and Jeddah. A little bit about the local economy and the impact this will have, please.
I totally agree. Look, I think there is, to start with, there is a strategy within BIF, content or local content strategy. So the first thing, that strategy is cascaded to all subsidiaries of BIF. So we have that as a major goal to maintain and observe in our work throughout the years. To start with, everything we do is localized, even not at a Saudi level, but also at a destination that we are working. Localized to a degree that we really try to, because we are not in the business of building only hospitality. We are in the business of city making. So whatever the city requires, any gap that exists in that city, we really are there to fulfill that gap with our partners and the whole ecosystem. Starting from building destination management companies, to tour operators, to arrivals in the airport, to shuttle service, to even translators, to butlers, to reach our destination. And our destination is not one asset. You will have multi-destination, like in Yambu, it's 4 different asset class with 4 different offerings. Now, in terms of design, we also look at following up the code of building, including the material to be built, to be bought from the destination itself or from Saudi in general. We follow the design guidelines. We empower the destination by hiring their own local people. We work with SMEs to bring whatever gap that exists in the destination, whether it's F&B or entertainment or even retail, to provide the visitors with a full-fledged, experience. Our goal in those beautiful cities that you mentioned is to have visitors to stay at least between 5 to 7 nights. So 5 to 7 nights with a full-fledged day activity. And in Saudi, in many cities, you can have desert, you can have an oasis, and you can have the water within 20 minutes reach. So imagine how much beautiful experience beside the culture, beside the hospitality, and beside the nature that exists in typology, even the climate. It's an amazing, so we are there to provide for employment, definitely, because we're hiring local Saudis who are, residents on those destinations. We are partnering with universities to establish certain training programs for locals, to have those locals, once they graduate, they come and work on our assets and keep them in their destination. We are working with the small families, to provide the authentic food to our platform or assets there. We're working in different cases with farmers, like in Taif, to provide the rose of Taif experience to our assets. So there are so many things that are, there to empower the locals and capitalize on the local.
That's fantastic. And so investors in the audience, really what I think the kingdom is doing with ASFAR is paving the way and setting up the infrastructure for you to find an equity partner to develop here. So I hope that you will reach out to ASFAR and make that happen if that's what you're interested in doing. And so the bringing to fruition of that really are two great brands that we have here on the stage today with us, Guy from Hilton and Haitham from IHG. And both of those parent portfolios have many brands under them that are really spread out through the kingdom. So why don't we talk a little bit more about their progress and successes that they've had here in the kingdom. Guy, Hilton is set to quadruple its portfolio in the kingdom. That is pretty incredible. What are some of the exciting brands and destinations in your pipeline that you will be bringing here to the KSA?
I think, it's probably the world's worst kept secret that today Saudi Arabia is probably one of the most dynamic spaces on the planet when it comes to development of hospitality and tourism assets. So, this is an incredibly important market for us. Today we have a pipeline of 60 plus hotels, 17,000 keys, across 11 brands, and that's where we are today. And literally daily, weekly, monthly, that is growing exponentially. We've just celebrated today a deal which is 1,600 keys in Medina with Rural Medina. So, it's just an incredibly dynamic space. And I think what's really, really very interesting for us as a hospitality company is the depth of what you're able to develop and the variation or variety in what you're able to develop. We've got projects like the Avenues in Riyadh, which is probably the biggest mixed-use development in Saudi Arabia today, with unbelievable retail, hospitality, commercial, residential, and it's going to be a phenomenal project. Then we have with Diriyah Gate, our first LXR, what will be an iconic Waldorf Astoria. And then some really very interesting developments. If you go down to Al Assa, we have a complex with Dan & Co. in Al Assa, which is an agri-resort, an eco-resort, and an adventure resort all in one, which is going to just give this really exciting experience to travelers who are passing through Al Assa. But then equally as excited, we opened a Hampton, which is a mid-market brand in Neom, 2 months ago, and it's probably hosted more global CEOs in a Hampton in the last 2 months than any hotel in Saudi Arabia. So that's almost as exciting. And I think what makes this space so special is, I can't recall an example of having a space where you've had this national focus on our industry. We've got this national strategy which is underpinned by financial infrastructure specific to our business, specific to the hospitality industry. I think that is something completely unique. So that environment where you're working with private investors, where you're working with government, where you're working with important arms like Tourism Development Fund, the Tourism Authority, that collaboration, that combination of factors focusing specifically in one industry like tourism is completely unique. I'm not sure that I'll see that again in my lifetime, and I can't think of many other spaces where that could be replicated on this scale. And that's just providing the most fun platform for hospitality to develop all the way from luxury to mid-market. it's just a very, very special place to be.
Totally agree with you. I mean, it is amazing how this kingdom in just a few short years has set up the infrastructure. And in my humble opinion, it's not been done anywhere in the world before, and I don't believe it will be done anywhere else. It's really the new global benchmark. So opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. So, Haitham, you represent IHG, and IHG, another fantastic brand with, as a parent portfolio, a plethora of brands here in the kingdom. Can you tell us a little bit about what properties you have here and where and how you're growing within the kingdom as well for your IHG portfolio, please?
Sure, thank you, Eddie. Well, listening to Fahad, it's quite inspirational to see all the amount of work and efforts that ASFAR is doing across Saudi Arabia, but also what they're doing resonates very much with our journey in Saudi Arabia. Hilton wants to quadruple their pipeline here in Saudi Arabia, and there's so much space for development across the country for everyone, and the country needs a lot more brands, right? We're the largest operator in the kingdom, and we were the first to establish presence here in Saudi Arabia with the Intercontinental Riyadh in 1975. Which is probably before many people in this room were born, right? And we're all young, Gen Z in this room. Guy, at least.
Some of us wish, but that's okay.
So
it's only a number.
Yeah. So with with 47 hotels across the kingdom, we were also the first to operate in what you called earlier as the sort of secondary, tertiary markets. We were the first into Taif, first into Abha, Yambo, Najran, Hafr al-Batin, and a lot of other cities that many people here would probably not know. I was fortunate to be part of the Saudi tourism journey in 2019 at the launch of the visa, and worked on His Excellency Ahmed Khatib's team as his advisor, and also as advisor to Fahad Hamiduddin in establishing the SDA. So as part of that journey, and I understood where the focus was and the strategy for Saudi, and it was extremely inspirational at the time to see the ambition of Saudi and where Saudi wants to place itself on the world map of tourism, and the sort of markets that Saudi was aiming to attract. Saudi is not an unknown country. Everyone in the world knows Saudi. When I was in the United States in the 80s, when I tell people I'm from Lebanon, they go, well, Lebanon? Where's Lebanon? And I show them on the map, and they say, oh, it's so small. And then I have to say, Saudi Arabia. And they all, Saudi Arabia. So they thought I was from Saudi Arabia and asked me if I had oil in my backyard, that came already in barrels. So obviously, look, this is a journey for Saudi, which we have all embarked on, and all hotel companies and brands wanted to be part of this amazing journey. We've got 49 hotels in the pipeline across our brands. We have recently opened last year our uber luxury brand, the Six Senses, in the Red Sea, and what a great partner the Red Sea Development. John Pagano and his vision and his team are just extremely inspiring on how much effort they put in sustainable development, and really taking that seriously, not just a gimmick, not just a marketing gimmick. It's absolutely serious. And we're very excited about opening the Intercontinental on the Red Sea right around mid next year. We're the largest operator in Mecca, very well experienced there with over 12,000 rooms in Mecca across our brands. We have a significant pipeline as well in Mecca and Medina and across the country. And we're also venturing into some of the markets that Fahad mentioned earlier in the Asir region, with the new Intercontinental in Abha, reestablishing our presence there. We were present there in the 90s with the Intercontinental Abha. And also we have a number of other initiatives that we're working alongside the Tourism Development Fund, and establishing a sustainable development fund for our brands across the country, and a number of other initiatives. So we're part of that journey. We're also absolutely delighted to celebrate with Saudi last month the 100 million visits. That was a stunning event, by the way, for those responsible putting that event together. Congratulations, it was absolutely fabulous. And just great news to see the amount of efforts that the tourism ministry have put, and to see the fruition of that, and how everyone in Saudi celebrates that milestone and that achievement. And as a result, as Fahad mentioned, the target has now increased up to 150 million. And knowing Saudi and the Saudi ambition, I'm pretty sure that they will exceed that by miles.
You. I agree. I think they will exceed it for sure. They love their KPIs and they love exceeding them. But, you know, I still say, as wonderful as all the exposure has been, a lot of people still have no idea really what a beautiful and incredible tourist destination Saudi is. So everybody's working really hard to continue that momentum. So I have a question actually for the three of you, because you've all been as part of this journey for quite a number of years. So to share with our audience as potential investors, do you want to maybe share what your greatest success was, or what was different maybe about achieving success here? And maybe we'll start with you, Haitham, and come down this way.
Look, I think we were fortunate that we totally understood the vision, Vision 2030, and we aligned with that, all right? Understanding, you mentioned earlier the Saudi hospitality. And by the way, Saudi hospitality goes back to the 7th century, with Haitham Tai, one of the poets who was known for his extreme generosity. And he comes from a village called Ha'il, where until today, people in Ha'il have their doors open, and you walk in and get fruits and dates, and nobody asks you any questions. That's how generous they are. So the generosity of Saudi comes way back. But understanding that vision, understanding that Saudi hospitality and the focus on tourism, and again, tourism is not new to Saudi, right? With the religious tourism, or spiritual tourism as we refer to it now, that goes back thousands of years, right? It's not yesterday, right? So Mecca received tourists from across the world for pilgrim, 1,500 years ago. So that's not something new to Saudi. Establishing the infrastructure in Saudi, whether it's the tourism infrastructure or the hospitality infrastructure, is where we felt we were successful, because we understood the vision and we understood the roadmap. And we understood what brands, that were resonating with not only the Saudis themselves. This is a highly domestic market, but also you've got a huge inbound that is targeted now to come into the country. So the objective is not to really just shift the dial from the 70-30 or 60-40, whoever's telling you the story about domestic versus international, but the objective is to increase the international numbers, right? Saudi is a populous country, it's the 12th or 13th largest country in the world. So our success story has been our brands, the existing of our brands in the country dating back to 1975, and being part of the Saudi hospitality journey right from the outset. That has been our success.
Thank you. Guy, your and Hilton's experience?
Building a little bit on, also that thoughtfulness around brand, and the thoughtfulness about how that growth has been underpinned. I mean, one thing which is quite significant around our particular pipeline of 17,000 keys is that 65% or more is actually physically under construction. So it's a very, very concrete growth story. But I think probably what we're proudest of, and I think what our teams here have been most forward thinking about, is getting ahead of the talent pipeline. I think, that is, you talk about 17,000 keys, and you talk about growth, and you talk about hotels, and we talk about number of keys. 17,000 keys is 25,000 jobs. It's easy to talk about hotel rooms and keys and growth and number of hotels and brands, but underpinning that is a human resource, because at the end of the day, we are a business that it's about people serving people. So we have never taken, and our teams have done a phenomenal job here, of never taking guidance as rule, and basically it's been to a degree ignored, to go, if we look at what is the trajectory of tourism and what is the trajectory of hospitality in this country over 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it's not about an expatriate workforce. And put to one side a little bit of what's been mandated in terms of population and work. This hospitality industry needs to be self-sustaining, and it needs to be an industry which is run by Saudi nationals for an international and a domestic tourist. And the work that our teams have done about accelerating that, we're up to 55% plus of our total workforce in Saudi Arabia today are Saudi nationals. A large proportion of that are women. We have a female general manager in one of our hotels in Mecca, and getting ahead of that talent pipeline I think is one of the biggest successes that the team has had, and that is really what is underpinning, what gives us confidence about that growth story, the ability to work with young people. We have about 400 to 500 graduates going through our hotels every year, working with local government, working with education environments, working with support from local government, and getting ahead of that talent pipeline is one of the key successes for us, because that is actually the most fundamental factor probably in growth and delivery of our brand promise over time.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, the population here, 70% are 30 years and younger. And my mother used to say, if you want to stay young, be around young people. And I love talking to the young people here. And what I said to the STA team is, I have never seen so many young people excited about their future. They are really in line with Vision 2030. They embrace it, at least all of the ones that I've had the pleasure to interact with. And they're excited about training for these jobs. I mean, I could give you examples of the team members at hotels that I've stayed at, the dialogue and the conversation about how excited they are to welcome foreign tourists and to serve them in a really Saudi unique way. So again, nothing but opportunity. Fahad, back to you with that question, please.
Look, I think success for us, in terms of numbers, we have deployed in the market more than a couple of millions, let me say, in the last 2 years. If we talk numbers, and when we say deploy, we deploy. That's our portion building assets, and I don't think that's really a big challenge. As long as we have the mandate, we have the empowerment from BIF to do so. I think success for us was, first of all, the operating model, the courage to go to, let's say, challenging opportunities, especially in destinations beyond Riyadh and Jeddah, where I would say maybe 90% was the focus on the last maybe 10 years of private sector. Riyadh, Jeddah, Mecca, Medina, it's no-brainer, to be honest with you. But there was a big challenge in going to destination like Yanbu, Hail, Hassa, Taif. So to start with, it's really, you know, the courage to go and find a spot, a beautiful, opportunity for you to play, and capitalize on the DNA of that destination. Regardless, it's, as you said, it's massive, beautiful cities in the kingdom with it's rich of many things. So really finding the right play for us to play in that destination, getting the blessing from the top, going to the destination itself, to the prince or the mayor of that destination, working with the private sector there, whether it's the municipalities or other landowners, and then putting that together, and then going to the private sector. And going to the private sector and convincing the private sector that you have a great operating model as a public-private or semi-public partnership, where there are beautiful opportunities that still exist in Riyadh and Jeddah, and I think this is the focus of majority of the biggest players here, is Riyadh, Jeddah, new giga project like Neom, Qaddiya, Dir'iyya. But rarely you find, private sector plus us thinking beyond the typical norms and going to destination and making those destination a destination. And we believe, and I'd like really to, thanks our partners. They really took the courage to leave, the comfort zone where profit is and go to destination untapped with a beautiful offerings that we believe. I mean, Saudi is not only Riyadh, Jeddah, or Amal or Neom. It's the beautiful destination that you have from east to south, north, west. So I think it's the operating model. It is what we offer to our partners to ensure that they succeed, and it's a win-win situation, working together under the umbrella of any regulation, whether with MISA or Ministry of Tourism.
And I think a credit to all three of you and your brands that you represent is the fact that you're all in line with Vision 2030's UN SDG guidelines, doing everything around ESG, sustainability, and I think perhaps just as paramount, delivering an authentic experience in each of these destinations, because that's the other key. People don't want, a fabricated Disneyland. They want to travel to learn about the locals, to learn about the history, to learn about the culture. And certainly in my 7 years of coming here, I have experienced that repeatedly. So I say kudos to all of you. It's hard to believe we're out of time, but I would say to those of you in the audience, reach out certainly to ASFAR from an investment standpoint, and these two great brands and all of the brands they represent, to book your next stay in the KSA with them. And then on behalf of the Future Hospitality Summit, shukran, thank you, the three of you, for joining us. Thank you, everybody.